So, Gaijin released a quote-unquote new temporary mode for us ground players to try out this weekend called Advance. I played it the entire afternoon yesterday out of curiosity and I thought I'd share my opinion on it. First of all, what is this mode about? If you've played Battlefield in the past, and more specifically the Operations game mode, then it will be somewhat familiar to you. Basically, the teams are not fighting over a neutral capture point, but instead a team is dedicated to defending it and one team to attacking it. Once captured, a new zone becomes available further back. Do that 4 or 5 more times, and that's the new mode in a nutshell. Now, does it work in War Thunder?
No.
Not really. For this test session, this mode is only available on 3 maps: Mazhino Volokholamsk and
Port Novorossiysk.
First of all, I understand that this mode needs big maps, but those 3 are already not the most popular or not the most enjoyable to play. The second problem is that the BR for this mode was limited between 4.7 to 5.7 for all nations. Unfortunately, not all nations have a lot of vehicles at this very specific BR range, or some will eternally be stuck facing vehicles of a higher tier. There's also no advantage in playing a 4.7 vehicle since you know you'll struggle a lot anyway by facing mostly 5.7 tanks. As you can see, just by hovering over the settings of this mode, we already have a bunch of issues, but let me tell you more specifically about my experience. After playing it for more than 6 hours, this mode is, I think, even worse than regular ground RB. Most of the time, I felt like the entire thing was just devolving into spawn camping extremely quickly, due to the fact that the initial spawns on some maps are too close to one another, you lack cover options, or that the capture point was hardly approachable. My very first game put me on the attacking team. I was playing the US against mostly Germany. Getting to the cap was easy, despite the lack of cover, since I was using smoke shells to cover the advance. The first point was captured, but as soon as it was, nothing changed. The enemy team, compared to Battlefield, is not forced to retreat when they've lost their points, so they can just stand there and keep shooting at you. Their new respawn point is now further away, but they can still delay you or even lock you down if your team is not pushing. On some open maps, Germany has a pretty big advantage when they are on the defense, and since players don't really think about using smoke shells or even flanking, the entire mode ends up being the 2 teams sniping each other from their spawn. I think Gaijin should do a few things to balance this. First of all, create zones between the spawns and the capture point which should not be entered by the enemy team, as if you were out of bounds. Stay there for too long and you blow up or something. That way it would force the players to focus on the objective instead. Next, when a zone is captured, make that part of the battlefield out of bounds for the defenders. Force them to relocate to their next defensive line, with the same consequences as mentioned before, or maybe something like you become permanently marked on the minimap as long as you stay there. Lastly, on
Port Novorossiysk.
the defenders don't even have time to reach the first capture point before the attackers do. That should be the opposite. After all, the defenders are supposed to be the ones in control of the majority of the battlefield to begin with. Moving on to another issue, revives. In this mode you have 5 lives that you can use on any vehicles you want. That's honestly not a lot in a mode focused on objectives. It also creates another problem, like players barely spawning in anti-airs even when there are multiple planes up. I would honestly ditch that 5 lives system and instead apply the same mechanic as the one Enduring Confrontation has. Just spawn as many times as you want. Maybe they could add some sort of penalty for the attackers when they die to force them to be cautious or something like that. Last but not least, lineups and BR. I think it'd be better if this mode was forcing you to play a dedicated lineup provided by the game rather than bringing your own vehicles. I've never seen more VFWs in my life than in this game mode. Plus, as we mentioned, not all nations have a lot of tank variety at certain BRs. Gaijin should just give you a dedicated lineup that they could make historical for once. Imagine this mode, but each week you'd get a rotation on the nations attacking or defending based on the map. One week you'd have, for example, Germany being the attacker against Soviet forces on Stalingrad, but the next week it could be the Allies attacking the German forces on fields of Normandy. This might be a bit too repetitive for some players, but for me it would be the optimal solution. The one thing I didn't mention was planes. They are present in this mode, which is obviously a shame, especially when a few of them are currently extremely busted. This mode would be better off without them, but I know it won't happen, so it's even pointless to mention that. So there you go for my impressions on this mode. Ultimately, I wouldn't waste my time on it this weekend if I were you. You'll have a better time playing in regular battles. Let's hope Gaijin will keep tweaking this mode in a good way, unlike Nuclear Thunder or whatever it's called at the moment, and that will hopefully have an okay product at the end. As always, I hope this was useful to you. Let me know your impressions on this mode, and with that said, I'll see you in the next one.